Hey crafty friends, this is Jenny from crafttestdummies.com. Good afternoon and welcome to the studio. Today I thought I would do a little comparison since I've been really into stamp pads lately and playing with them. I have a lot on my desk. So I thought what I would do is compare what stamp pads worked best with both watercolors and Copics. So actually we're looking at a range of stamp pads and seeing which ones work with either a water-based marker or an alcohol-based marker. Now, if you're watching this on replay, thank you for joining me. I hope you follow me at Craft Test Dummy for live scopes. And if you're watching on YouTube, welcome, and I hope you subscribe. Okay, so let's start off with just going over the stamp pads that I've got and the ones that I compared. So I started off with a paper tray, dye-based ink. By the way, I also, I use dye-based, pigment-based, and solvent-based in this overview because I have them all and it's good to know. So I started off with paper tray. I also am using, as I dig it out, Versafine, which is Tsukiniko, Imagine Crafts. I'm also looking at Lawn Fawn because I had it from a kit. I am looking at My Favorite Things because I think I had it from a kit. I'm looking at Memento. I also believe I have Memento Luxe. So one is dye and one is pigment. I also looked at India ink. This is an ancient pad, but it's still juicy, amazing. I looked at Staz-on black. Are you keeping count? Do you know how many I've got yet? I looked at Delicata, which is a metallic black, just because I have it on my thing. I know. Dana says, poor thing, you have no ink pads. I know, and I didn't even bring them all with me. This is just, I don't know. I also have Adirondack ink pad, which I included in this. And last but not least, a Distress ink pad. All right, so this is the part of the program where I speed things up so I can kind of give you the voiceover of what's happening without having to watch every second of it. So I did use two different markers. I used a yellow Tombow and then I also used a yellow Copic. And the reason why I did this was because that way if things started to bleed with the black ink, you'd really be able to see it well. But just to clarify, Tombow is a water-based marker and Copic is an alcohol-based marker. So here's kind of my overview of them. As you can see, some of them are really obvious. And there's the Tombow is on the left of each heart shape, and then there's water in the middle, just using plain water to see if it bled, and then the Copic is at the bottom. So that's also a little bit of a key too. And as I go through them, I was able to really determine that some of them looked really good and other ones, really started to bleed out a little bit. So then what I did, once I identified the 5 best stamp pads for watercolor, I stamped them on this white paper. And this is ultra smooth paper, so it's dense and smooth. It's really nice for watercolor markering. And I found that the Versafine, the Delicata, My Favorite Things, Memento, and Staz-on were the 5 best of all of the stamp pads I tried to use with watercolor marker. Then what I did is I went over them again, not being maybe as careful as I'd be if I were coloring this for real, but trying to just make sure that I'm using a light hand color over the ink to see which stamp pad held up the best to the watercolor marker. Okay, so we're going to say that our favorite is number 1, Versafine, number 2, Staz-on because of the detail, and we're going to say number 3 is MFT because you get a lighter color, but you get some decent detail. And Memento kind of gets an honorable mention too. Then I went ahead and I actually repeated the same idea with my Copic markers. And for our 5 finalists were Memento,
My Favorite Things, Distress, Paper Tray, and the Delicatas. So again, I tried to use a light hand, but if you're going to color over the black, you want to be able to make sure it doesn't smear. By the way, if I got a little bit of color on the nib, I had that scratch paper nearby so I could kind of wipe it off and keep it clean. So that was just, I tried not to cross-contaminate too very much. But at the very end of the day, we had some really good competition here for the best stamp pad.
So I'm going to tell you that if it were me ranking these right now, I would actually give Distress a number 1 because that clarity of detailing in the stamp is great. I'd say Memento is actually number 2 because it wasn't as crisp, but it doesn't smudge. And then for me, Paper Tray is number 3.
Okay, so for the final analysis, I'm actually going to hijack the conversation again. And as we take a look at both the alcohol-based markers and the water-based markers, there are really only 2 that overlap and can be worked with both. Now, the number 1 for watercolor is great, Versafine, love that. The number 1 for the Copic markers, which I loved, was Distress. But the only 2 that appeared on the finalists are Memento Tuxedo Black and My Favorite Things Hybrid Ink Pad. Now, both of these are great for regular stamping, working with pencils, and now you know they're also great for using with both alcohol-based and water-based markers. These are pads you should have in your stash.
So much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this Periscope rebroadcast. Make sure you follow me at Craft Test Dummy over there so you can see them live and participate. Thanks for watching and have a crafty day.